Okay, I guess maybe we can start. So good morning, everybody. My name is Francesca Rosso. I work for the ETF, for those who don't know me. But I guess most of us have been in touch already before this meeting. This is really becoming a very active community. The network is growing. Just as a piece of information for all of us, we now reach 350 registered members of the network only after 2.5 years from its launch. So we are really proud of this result, and we really thank all the participants for being with us and for following our activities and contributing directly to our activities. As we say all the time, and I can't say it enough, this is not a network of the ETF, but this is a network of the members, because these like the activities that we organize are really agreed together and are also jointly organized with the members of the network. And we really hope that this brings added value to your research, to the work you do in your country. And we firmly believe that the peer exchange that we organize as part of this network can be beneficial for your work and also for meeting other entities, other researchers that have your same field of research. So today we have a very special occasion, a very special event. This is the first peer learning activity of the year. You know that there were other peer learning activities in 2023, but for this year, this is the first one, and we are really grateful for the colleagues from the AE4RIA network for being with us and for kindly sharing their work, their methodology, their reflection. I think is a golden opportunity for all of us to learn about a topic which is still new, and we see that still there are issues with definition, classification, and all in all, green skills are very fashionable, but it's not that easy to track them, to understand what it means really, and to understand the trends and the evolution that skills for the green transition have in the different countries. We had the luck with my colleague Roman Ouattara to meet Professor Konduri and Professor Landis in Dubai at the COP 28 last year. And it was really an eye-opening. The work you do in your team is really revealing and extremely interesting, I think, for all of our community. I want to stop here. I give the floor to my colleague Cristiana Burzio, who has led on the organization of this peer learning session. Cristiana will tell a few introductory words, and then, of course, we give the floor to the real actors, the key actors of today's session. Thank you very much for being with us, and Cristiana, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Francesca. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to everyone, and very nice to see you all today. For those who do not know me, my name is Cristiana. I work in the European Training Foundation, and I'm part of a team of the Skills Lab Network. Let me thank you for being here today for this peer learning activity, which is organized within the Skills Lab Network. In addition to in-presence events, thematic webinars, we organize also these online peer learnings, which are meant to be some online sessions, quite informal, with the objective to expose all the members and beyond the network to a specific area of methodological practice in order to learn from each other. Let me spend a few more words about the network. As anticipated by Francesca, the Skills Lab network is rapidly growing. We are really grateful for that. You know that this network was founded in October 2021, and we have now reached over 320 members, research entities, institutions, all policymakers, which are interested in skills demand and are interested in discussions on how skills are changing. We are happy we have reached many members from ETF partner countries, but also from member states of the European Union, as well as third countries. Our idea is to really create a global forum to discuss skills issues. we see from the participants today that there are also many participants who are not yet members of this network. So you are really most welcome to register in the network if you're interested. And we will put in the chat box the registration link, so you can just fill in this brief survey and register. As also Francesca was mentioning, this year we plan to run a sort of midterm analysis of this network, and we wish to have an internal reflection on how the network can be better shaped for the next years, and how to make it a network of the members and not of ETF only. So as a starting point, we would encourage great involvement of the members in design of the activities, and we encourage again to share with us any proposals you may have on additional thematic areas that you would be interested to share and or to explore. Now, going to today's event. Today's event will be devoted to the experience from AE4RIA, who will present their approach to sustainable education and skills development. We're really eager to hear about the methodology developed to measure the level of implementation of SDGs in education and training, and to see how countries' performance can be looked at, can be explored at different levels. Regarding the agenda for today, we will have first 5 sessions where AE4RIA Director Professor Phoebe Conduri and her team will provide an overview of the initiative, the quantification and acceleration on ESG and SDG. We will address twin skills for the twin transition, transformative and participatory approaches, and also innovation acceleration. After this presentation, there will be an opportunity for a question and answer session in order to see clarifications which may be needed on all the items presented. And I take the opportunity to encourage you to put forward any question you may have during each presentation, writing it directly in the chat box. And we will do our best to address all of them during the dedicated session. Afterwards, we will have the time for an open discussion on the methodological approaches presented and how it could inspire or be applied in other sectors, countries, and so on. Now, just before entering the presentation session, we would like to take a picture of all of us. And if you wish to do so, please switch on the camera and we will take care of the picture. Thank you. Thank you for, I see more cameras switching on. Ada, will you kindly take care of the picture?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So now I'm pleased to pass the floor to my colleague Romain Wata, who will be today's moderator and will introduce you to the speakers and to the first session. Romain, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristiana. Good morning, everyone. My name is Romain. I will have the pleasure of moderating this session. So let me start by saying that we cannot manage what we don't measure. And many of us spend most of our daytime figuring out proxies and indexes and metrics for education and employment policy progress. And we're about to hear a coherent set of mini presentations that will give us a full overview of what the AE4RIA and the UN Climate Hub aim to achieve and exactly how they do that. So this has naturally many implications for all of us who work on this exact same subject and are regularly being asked to give opinions on how education and skills development are following the policy goals of a sustainable economy that relies on advanced technology. So for the econometrics enthusiasts among us, there will be plenty of contents, but for all of us, this might be just one of the tools that will become mainstream as policymakers increasingly consider SDG tracking in their reporting and program design. So sit back, turn up your speakers, grab your coffee. You're about to hear some cutting-edge science in a field that fascinates us all. Do ask questions in the chat box, as Cristiana said. We'll get to them at the end. So let's get started. It's my great privilege to introduce a true superstar in sustainable economics. Professor Phoebe Koundouri, not only is she recognized as one of the top 2% scientists worldwide by the Stanford University, but her groundbreaking work spans from academia to global policy influence. She's a distinguished professor at both the Athens University of Economics and Business, but also the Technical University of Denmark. Professor Koundouri boasts an impressive publication record, including major contributions to prestigious journals like the Nature and the Lancet. Her leadership extends beyond academia, as she's also the president of the European Association of Environmental and Resource Economists. She's an advisor to the UN, to the World Bank, a laureate of numerous awards, including the European Research Council Synergy Grant. Professor Koundouri is not just a scholar, but a visionary for a sustainable future. Let's welcome Professor Dr. Phoebe Koundouri and prepare to be inspired by her remarkable insights and expertise. Professor Koundouri, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for such a generous introduction. Let me try to avoid, I was looking at the participants and now, okay. So it is a true pleasure and a big honor to be able to work with ETF. And I'm really happy that I met you, Romain and Francesca, at COP28, and we identified the common vision and the need to empower the relevant stakeholders in driving, in accelerating the sustainability transition. So like you said, if we cannot measure it, we cannot manage it, we cannot improve it. And it is true for everything. It is true for any transition one is trying to make. We need to identify where we stand, where we want to go, and design pathways that will allow us to do so. And this is where we work. AE4RIA, the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation in AE4RIA, which means sustainability, is a research alliance, research innovation, innovation acceleration, science policy alliance that tries to showcase the way to design and implement the transition in the fastest and most efficient way. Now, why do we want to make this transition? We all have been saying during our talks and discussions and research and science and policy interactions that we are at the state of a multi-crisis. We know that we went through a pandemic. We are going through many major epidemics. And we have serious economic issues that is slow growth rates, inflationary pressures, shrinking fiscal spaces, 1/3 of the countries in the world at the brink of default. And together with the economic and health problems, we have the environmental, natural capital problems, the climate change crisis, the biodiversity collapse crisis. All of these create huge inequalities, including the income inequality across the developed world and the global south, but also inequalities, very strong inequalities within countries. All of these pressures very often lead to geopolitical crisis, which leads to war and it is really a very difficult, complex array of problems. In 2015 in New York, September, we were all there. 163 countries have decided that we need a way out of this multi-crisis, and the way out is the Sustainable Development Goals. 17 goals, 4 of them having to do with natural capital, 8 of them having to do with social cohesion, 4 of them having to do with economic growth, and of course, the final one highlighting the importance of collaborations, So here we are, the globe agreeing in this unique agenda. This is the only global agenda across the world, together with the Charter of Human Rights of the UN, that this is where we want to go by 2030. 17 targets, 169 17 goals, 169 targets within them. A very holistic, integrated, science hectic, data hectic, difficult to implement framework, but a framework that is correct and guarantees escape from the multi-crisis towards a sustainable world. And this is what we've been working on. This is what AE4RIA, the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation, is working on. Maria has put on the chat the link to the site of AE4RIA. You can see it's about 4 different research centers, 5 different innovation accelerators, acceleration of innovation, which innovation can be technological, can be financial, can be social, is very important these days, because although we are going through the fastest pace in history of advancements in technology, in financial instruments, in social structures and governance, what is crucial is not just the existence of these innovations, but the widespread adoption of these innovations. So what do you need in order for these innovations to be diffused across the economy, and through that achieve implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals? You need education, upskilling, reskilling, but also you need a very firm and robust framework of accelerating these innovations to the market, financing, business plans, survival of the startup ideas of the innovation. And of course, science policy networks are very important. We lead the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is the biggest network across the world with more than 2,000 members, and a hub in each and every country focusing on providing sustainability solutions for the implementation of the SDGs. We lead the European hub with more than 500 members, and we also lead the Global Climate Hub, which I'm gonna talk to you about. And of course, we don't only work on the science policy network, but we work with all the stakeholders interactively in a very participatory approach. So it's not just science, technology development, but not just policy, but also politicians, NGOs, financial institutions, businesses, and the civil society. Our main focuses are SDG and ESG measurement and sustainable finance. And there are a big array of projects which you can look at our website. We work on sustainability pathways for the climate neutrality and climate resilience. We work on sustainable marine resources. We work on sustainable water, food, energy, biodiversity nexus. And of course, the final part of our thematic interest is innovation acceleration, education, upskilling and reskilling, that is vocational training. What I'm showing now is just the different projects. These are multi-million, multi-partner, and definitely interdisciplinary across all disciplines and intradisciplinary with interaction with all relevant stakeholders. So it's not just science, it's all the stakeholders that need to co-design the transition to sustainability. And over the years, these are projects that add up to $500 million research funding, competitive research funding, and at the moment, more than 200 researchers working on them. Now, anything you do in order to facilitate the implementation of the sustainability transition has to be done in the policy framework that exists, and it is quite developed. There is a global framework, there is continental framework on the sustainability transition. Sustainability transition got on the political agenda around the 70s, but looking back to 2015 basically gives you a good summary of what is there. What you have here is a very rough summary of all the policies that are relevant for Europe. We can do this for each and every continent, global and continent-specific policies. Here I highlight Europe because of our interest now in this specific collaboration, but also I know that the institution is doing a lot of work outside Europe, and let me reassure you that we have the relevant policy framework figured out across different continents. But the other important thing about Europe is that it is the flagship example of transposing the global framework of SDGs into a very detailed policy framework. And you can see how we try to investigate the connection of SDGs and the European Green Deal, which is basically the policy framework for the sustainability transition and the growth strategy of Europe into connecting each other. Maria will put on the chat here the link to our new paper in Nature that investigates exactly the connection and correlation and transposition of the two policy frameworks, the global framework of the SDGs and the European Green Deal. You will see how closely they are connected there in that Nature paper. So going back to how I started and how Romain referred to our work today, is that we are in the desperate need of measuring the transition. So since 2015, every year, we publish a report as UNSDSN that measures the performance against each SDG and each targets within the SDGs with hundreds of KPIs, the performance of each and every country across the world against the SDGs. The darker the blue, the better the performance, the lighter the blue, the lower the performance. But you can have access to all the measurements, the data, the KPIs that we use in the UNSDSN Sustainable Development Report Global. And you can see on the left-hand side of your presentation, the progress that we are making is the blue line, the focus for the progress, which is the dotted blue line, and what is actually needed in order to implement the SDGs, which is the green line. You can see that we are in desperate need of increasing the pace of implementing the SDGs. Mary, please put the report, the Sustainable Development Report Global. We measure this for Europe as well, and you can see the colors. Red means stagnation with regards to implementing the goals. The more we move towards a green color, the more sustainable the country becomes. Yellow and orange means that we are still facing challenges with regards to implementing the goals. All these are measured in a lot of detail. They are monitored, they are assessed every year. So each and every country knows how well it's implementing each of the SDGs, the target within the SDGs, and not just that. If you see the arrows, they showcase the focus towards 2030 with regards to our ability of implementing the SDGs. You can see we do it for the whole of Europe, we do it for each and every country. We can even downscale to regions within a country, and this is very important for policy making because you can see where you are not doing very well, and you can allocate budget and in infrastructural projects and also other changes in the economy, in the society that will allow you to increase your performance with regards to SDGs. And not only we can do it for regions within countries and cities and local authority, but also for institutions. We measure SDG performance in universities, and we can even measure them for companies. Any detailed unit of economic or social activity can be analyzed with regards to the SDGs. So the SDGs are, of course, our global agenda, and then we have the Paris Agreement. We all know that the last 5 years, we've been seeing many European Green Deals across the world, pledges for climate neutrality 5 years before the map that you see on this slide was gray, almost everywhere, except Europe. Now we see many pledges, which is exciting and a structural break, really. But at the same time, we know that even if all these pledges are implemented, we are still not reaching the 1.5 maximum increase in average global temperature that we need in order to survive in this globe. Moving faster now, we know that 2019 is the European Green Deal that actually has main 4 axes: climate neutrality 2050, reduction of pollution, clean tech leadership of European companies, and leave no one behind. And even after the big non-linearity of COVID, Next Generation EU basically added to the 1 trillion that was supporting the European Green Deal, 750 billion additional for the sustainability transition, the green and digital transition. 37% of any project that was financed by the Recovery and Resilience Fund had to be climate mainstream and 20% digital mainstream. And these are the areas that it's financing: decarbonizing power generation and industry, circular economy, biodiversity protection, sustainable mobility, and with regards to digital, improving connectivity, helping citizens to deploy digital skills, deploying cutting-edge technology, and improving cutting-edge technologies. These are actually the areas where new jobs will be popping out. These are the sectors of the economy that will lead the sustainability transition. This is where we expect growth. And this will be very important when my team will be presenting our work on the new skills and occupations that will drive the transition. Of course, there are many things going on with regards to the detailing of the European Green Deal. We have the European Climate Law. We have the EU taxonomy that is making explicit what is financed as sustainable investment, and at the same time require the corporate sustainability report for each and every company that is large by 2024, and for all companies, including SMEs, by 2027. We have the Fit for 55, including a major revision in all sectors of the economy and in all systems of the economy, the land use system, the energy system, the way we trade with other companies, with the carbon border adjustment tax, that basically tries to help Europe reduce its climate and emissions by 55% by 2030 compared to the emissions we have in 1990. And of course, after the war in Ukraine, we have REPowerEU, focusing on independence from Russia and fossil fuels, supply chain security, interconnectivity, and investing in renewables. And together with all this, we have the digital policies, the industrial policies, and it is really a very difficult task to provide implementation guidance and pathways for this array of integrated policies. But this is what we try to do. And I will give you an example of how we try to do it through my presentation of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Global Climate Hub. This is a global hub working with all the countries that you see in the map here, where we have a national hub. Mary will put on the chat the link to the website of the Global Climate Hub. And the major objective is to co-design national and subnational detailed pathways for the transition to a climate neutral, resilient world. We traveled to more than 120 countries. We spoke with governments. And what we find is that no government will tell you now that I'm not interested in investing towards solving the challenge of climate change. They will tell you, well, I have some national plan, but it's very upscale, and it's very difficult to really go down into implementing at field level. And this is our task, to find the optimal dynamic mixture of technologies, policies, fiscal and financial instruments, and socioeconomic narratives that will allow the implementation of the climate neutrality and climate resilience solutions. And the hub has 9 different units, and these are the units that we think are important to exist in terms of analysis per nation in order to be able to implement climate neutrality and climate resilience pathways and achieve them by 2050. Mary will put in the chat the Nature paper, Nature interview that I gave in Nature Sustainability, where we showcase how these different units interact. But let me quickly go through them. The first is climate data platforms and digital applications. How many minutes do I have yet, Mary? Where we collect, aggregate, connect, and visualize data related to the objective of the Global Climate Hub, geospatial data, socioeconomic data, and this is the hub structure. So we collect all the data, we try to do it as in real time as possible, and then this data is fed into our models that concern the modeling of the energy system, the land use system, the marine use system of each and every nation, in order to find integrated pathways for all these systems. And then we provide visualizations of different pathways that integrate the results of all these systems. Of course, we have a unit on atmospheric physics and climatology, people working with IPCC report, where we also work as observers, and we try to improve understanding of human influence on the way the range of climate variables. And then we focus on the energy system using the Palmorer model. This is a very energy integrated system, a very holistic system in order to understand energy supply, demand, climate policies, and simulating scenarios, providing detailed values for all relevant variables. And this model can be implemented at European scale, regional scale, national scale, but also beyond Europe. This is just an example of Europe. And it brings together the energy sources, the prices, the taxes, the subsidies, the technology costs, and gives you optimal expansion, generation, and transmission, detailed dispatch information, electricity prices, and plant revenue, CO2 emissions. And at the end of the day, it gives you results like this on this slide. It can, on the right-hand side, you can see the optimal mixture by 2050 of energy sources across Europe. Where are the hubs, where the different energy sources should be used. This is a cost minimization model, and this is the optimal mixture of energy sources. And you can use that in Southern Europe. You have solar power, mainly in Northern Europe, where you have, of course, wind. And on the right-hand side, you also have the hydrogen possible structure. And you can see on both maps that we don't just identify the energy sources, we also identify the cost optimal pathways of production and consumption. And this is another very interesting, possibly geopolitical issue in Europe, because where you produce energy is where you will see a growing interest for relocation of industry. We come back at the discussion. Then we have climate and land use system. This is an important system. This is an important system again, and it's about finding the optimal use of agriculture, forestry, and at the same time, marine resources. We have been working using the Fable calculator on optimal agriculture resource allocation so that agriculture can satisfy food security, but at the same time satisfy our climate goals and our biodiversity goals. And these are not just goals, they are also commitments to international treaties. These are the countries that we work in. And this is how, for example, it looks for Greece, what you have to do in order to achieve national commitments for greenhouse gas emissions, for example, in agriculture. And you can see that it is possible to become climate neutral, net zero by 2040. So we have the changes, we document the changes that need to be made, and we also document the cost of the changes and the possible benefits, and through a cost-benefit analysis, we identify the most efficient pathways for the transition. And then we add the forest sector, and we also do the same analysis for the marine sector, and then we integrate both at coastal level. The next section of the hub is climate and health. It is important to understand physical and mental conditions of the impact of climate change. We monetize this and we integrate in our analysis. I will try to finish in 2 minutes. The other important part is, of course, innovation acceleration. I've talked about this. We, at the moment, accelerate 450 startups across the 3 different accelerators, one on shipping and ports, one on sustainable blue economy, and the other called Climate Innovation Window, which basically puts together 250 startups that have solutions for climate adaptation. It's not just mitigation, it's also adaptation. Mitigation adaptation means I'm reducing my CO2 emissions. Adaptation means that I'm protecting my citizens, my economy, my infrastructure against extreme climate events, especially floods, heat waves, forest fires, tsunamis, and so on, that are here and now and are happening. And I have to have the technology, but also the strategic plans that allow me to protect the economy and the society. And we have a window with all the hazards, the different areas of the economy, and solutions and technology TRL's level that will allow you to identify the optimal mixture of solutions for the particular country or local authority you are interested in. This is very important to understand that we are talking about a mixture of both adaptation and mitigation strategies. And then, of course, is the socioeconomic narrative. Who pays about all this? The first thing that one needs to understand is that we need to have a monetary measure, a quantification of not just produced capital, but also human capital and natural capital. And we have done a lot of work on identifying the monetary value of natural capital and integrating this in cost-benefit analysis decisions of budget allocations, of infrastructural projects, but also any other projects and policy reform. And not just developing a big platform where each agent, each stakeholder can see what is the value of natural capital that is used in each and every project, but also try to upscale this into national natural capital monetization and incorporation this in the national accounts of the countries. The second thing that we work on is on fiscal innovation. There are regressive effects from implementing climate policies, and it is important to use the receipt of climate policies in order to mitigate these effects. And this is what we do in general equilibrium analysis, identifying a package of measures that can really protect the vulnerable households that cannot afford to pay for the climate transition, to support their income in order to achieve a combined mitigation policy options that assure more equality, increased GDP, and increase employment for all regions of the world. And now a report of SDSN, Senior Working Group on the European Green Deal, the first report that we did showcases that this is possible, and it will be in your chat. Finally, it is very important to implement the EU taxonomy at not just a national level, a continent level, but also company level. The taxonomy is about defining environmentally sustainable economic activities, about implementing corporate sustainability reporting, enforcing stricter environmental reporting on businesses, and of course the EU Green Bond Standard, which aligns 75% of financial activities with the EU taxonomy. Very quickly, I will tell you that we have a spin-off that it is a matrix that allows each and every company to identify what they need to submit as corporate sustainability report. I repeat, 2024 large companies and companies in regulated markets, 2027, all companies, including SMEs. This is a spin-off that basically works through an electronic tool that allows you first to map the value chain of the company, map the stakeholders, implement the materiality assessment by stakeholder, and then measure all the elements that need to be incorporated in the sustainability report with specific KPIs across the value chain of the company. And then not just that, but map the ESGs that are about environmental, social, and governance criteria into SDGs that are about about everything, not just the environment, the society and governance, but also profit. The business of businesses is to make profit, and it is crucial that this sustainability transition allows businesses to identify the profitable opportunities across their value chain and invest in the transformations that will make them greener, more digital, more socially equitable, more environmentally friendly, but also more profitable by reducing costs through circular economy, from example, or through transition to green technologies that are now subsidized and also cost efficient compared to fossil fuels cost, and also increase their market share because they are providing products that are ESG and SDG consistent. And this means that given the increased popularity of sustainability, the understanding that we need to become more sustainable because we are facing the tremendous effects of our non-sustainability, makes businesses lower cost, increase market share, and increase profit. And finally, we created a dashboard that allows the company to identify how well it's performing against each SDG and the targets within them, and what it needs to revise in order to meet the targets and at the same time become more profitable. And not only this, but Conrad will also tell you that we can do that with a portfolio. So you can see that you can create financial portfolios. We use 95% of the global market share to showcase that ESG consistent portfolios are those that create the higher return. The ESG portfolio on this slide is the blue line, and you can see that it's much more profitable than any other portfolios. It beats the market. And you can do this not just for ESGs, but also for sustainable development goals. Here you can see portfolio returns from portfolio that are hedging against the risk that are embedded in each and every SDG. The higher return portfolio is the one that is hedging across against climate change, SDG 13. Finishing, I'm just saying that you cannot implement anything unless you co-design with those that are supposed to implement this. And Epun will be talking to you about that, how we use system innovation approach to bring together all the stakeholders, and based on our scientific rigor and the results from the research that I've shown you today, to co-design something that is acceptable to the stakeholders, that embraces the experiences, the knowledge, the local expertise, and the local worries. And if you do that, then you have a chance for implementation. And finally, education, training, upskilling, and reskilling. You need to educate the people to understand the problem, to understand that there are solutions to the problem, and to understand how they implement. And how they implement means increasing their capacity to be able to implement the solution pathways you are designing for them. We have the SDG Academy of the UN SDSN, mass open access courses with more than 1 million subscribers on all issues of sustainability. We have the UN SDSN ESG professional training course for all professionals that want to implement the Corporate Sustainability Directive and the EU taxonomy, that need to implement that, so they need to be upskilled. And also a project catalyst with more than 17 courses on sustainability transition. And finally, this report that we launched at the COP28, 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't been invented yet. This is a crucial structural break in our economy and society. And basically what we did here, and Eleni will speak about this, is that we gathered all regulations and policies that exist today and we transpose them into needs for implementation. So what would you need in terms of skills and occupations in order to implement the policies that are already launched for the sustainability transition? And based on this, we identify the skills that are needed and the new occupations that will be needed. And based on this, we give recommendations to the financial sector, the energy sector, the manufacturing, and the agricultural sector. But not only this, we give recommendations for transformations in the curricula of universities and vocational training. I stop here and I highlight the need for upskilling and reskilling, because you can produce the best technology, you can design the best policies, but if the stakeholders do not have the capacity and the understanding of the urgency for implementation, nothing will be implemented. Thank you so much for your patience.
Wow, thank you very much, Professor Kunduri. That was a lot of information, fascinating perspective. Thank you very much for this, let's say, introduction. It was more than an intro, but for us, an introduction into the subject, and we really look forward to getting our teeth into the methodology. I will straight away pass on the floor to the next speaker. Conrad, please, the floor is yours. We'll look at questions at the end. Let's keep going.
Thank you so much. So let me share my screen and can you see my screen?
We have a large slide that says AE4RIA on the left.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a very quick presentation of the tools, of our tools in relation to measuring sustainability performance. So the idea here is that we trying to downscale the UN SDSN framework which actually consists of key performance indicators and targets at global, regional, national level. We're trying to downscale this methodology into at more local level. So I guess, as Professor Kunduri already mentioned, we already have the methodology that we measure how regions, the world, or specific countries perform relative to the Sustainable Development Goals. So right, we have 169 key performance indicators, specific targets to implement by 2050, and so we do have these type of dashboards and metrics, which are the most common framework to measure sustainability performance, and it's also audited by the JRC. So the idea of our work is trying to downscale these framework at more local, at the more local scale. So for example, here we do have this project of downscaling at subnational and at NUTS 2 level. For example, what we can see here, it's the dashboard, the key performance indicators in the dashboard to measure the level of implementation of the 13 Greek administrative distincts. So this is NUTS 2 level inside countries. These are a little bit different indicators than the one used for used at the national level. We also have tools to measure the level of implementation of SDGs at specific institutions. So for example, we do have the metrics to measure SDGs at a university level. So here, the key performance indicators and the metrics are a little bit different. So for example, we do have mainly machine learning based approaches to measure how the research output, the course outlines contributes to the implementation of the SDGs, how the ESGs at the university level, or how the outreach, that is events happening, news in relation to university, how all of these contribute to the implementation of the SDGs. So this, for example, is a very useful tool for universities in order to identify, to measure their performance and then identify which are the gaps, either on the research produced, or on the course outlines, that is the education in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. Moving forward on this direction, we do have tools to measure the implementation of SDGs through budgetary and investment plans. So, for example, here we have developed tools to measure how the national recovery and resilience plans of different countries contributes to the implementation of the 17 SDGs. Again, this is a very useful tool for decision makers in order to identify if an investment plan or a budget has gaps in relation to specific SDGs. Again, in the same direction, we have worked with Horizon 2020 to develop tools in order to measure the contribution of funding scheme to the implementation of the SDGs, but rather really based on impact. So here we do have metrics where we're trying to measure what is the actual impact from the funding that were allocated to Horizon 2020 under Sustainable Development. And we do kind of use these metrics in order to measure the effectiveness of the allocation versus the initial allocation that is based on the European Commission on the real market, which is actually some metrics which are based on intention. Okay, so we have developed here the tools to measure if this funding was effective and what was how it contributed to the implementation of the SDGs. Now, as Professor Kuduri mentioned, we do have a collection of tools that we're trying to integrate the Sustainable Development Goals into the corporate sustainability reporting framework. So here, the AE4RIA has developed a holistic three-step approach in order to provide metrics for the companies to measure their sustainability performance. So very quickly, these methodology consists of first mapping the entire value chain of the company, also performing a very thorough materiality assessment for all stakeholders, for all types of stakeholders included in the company. That means we identify which are the material issues that we need to measure under the three pillars: the environment, social, and governance. And also we do have developed a large and extensive set of KPIs at various scales. So we do have, for example, KPIs which are sector agnostic and apply to all companies irrespectively of their sector of incorporation. Or we do have other types of KPIs which apply to companies listed in specific sectors or to different units across the value chain of the company, right? All of these large set of KPIs, of course, it's in line and compatible with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, with the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, and the EU Taxonomy. Now, the next step is that we do have methodology and metrics in order to transpose the ESG framework into the SDGs. So we do have here a machine and deep learning algo that map the ESG KPIs and targets to specific SDGs. So our corporate sustainability assessment framework looks like that. We do have one or more key performance indicators under the three pillars: environment, social, and governance, which are dynamically mapped to one or more SDGs. So these we provide kind of dashboard and metrics that companies can use not only to measure the level of implementation of the ESGs, so setting targets for the ESG key performance indicators and be able to measure the level of implementation of these targets, but also to measure at the company level and across its value chain the level of implementation of all 17 SDGs. Now, in the same direction, we have also developed methodologies in order to explore if there are sources of price risk in relation to ESGs and SDGs, and models to measure the SDG footprint of financial portfolios. So based on a very extensive data set covering more than 10,000 companies listed in international exchanges and a very, very vast list of sustainability-related KPIs from many known sources, we had developed asset pricing models to measure to measure the price risk related to sustainability. At the same time, we are also using machine-based learning KPIs, which are actually news announcements and any data in relation to company that reveals any controversy between what the company states in its the data that company reports and on its outreach through news and announcements. So based on this setup, we do have a large set of ESG-related scores for 90% of the global market for companies listed in international exchanges that correspond to more than 90% of the global market capitalization. So first of all, we do document a very strong ESG momentum in international stock exchange market. So companies that are on a good momentum with their ESGs that do ameliorate its ESG performance tend to actually have a very high return at the markets. In conjecture to companies which are not having a good tend to deteriorate their performance in relation to ESGs. So that brings us to our model where we actually, in an asset pricing and arbitrage theory setup, we do expand the Fama and Friends three-factor model to include 4 factors that do mimic for any source of price risk relation to ESGs. So we can see here, for example, that an ESG momentum factor in the asset pricing sense do generate a very value invested in $1 invested in this ESG factor mimicking portfolio tend to have a very high return during the last 20 years. That's a clear evidence that companies that do ameliorate their performance have a very strong performance, a very strong financial performance. And this type of models, if we use this type of models to value all the assets in the exchanges, it looks like this model performs better, for example, than a three-factor model in pricing assets. So using our previous framework, we can also try and test if there are sources of price risk relation to sustainable development goals. So for our ESGs and ESG-based KPIs, we transpose them based on our framework to SDGs. And we are able to calculate SDG factors that mimic for performance against sustainable development goals. So for example, here we can see the $1 invested to portfolios that mimic for performance against the 17 SDGs. And later, we can use these arbitrage pricing theory models in order to calculate the sensitivity of financial portfolios against these factors. Okay, so we are able to, we do provide dashboards in relation to the SDG footprint of financial portfolio. Okay, thank you so much. I try to be as quick as possible.
Thank you very much, Conrad. That was really great. We do need to catch up a little bit on the agenda. So thank you very much. Again, let's keep going. We move on to the next speaker to continue this series of mini presentations, and we're now going to look into green and digital skills, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, hello, and this is me. Let me share my screen. Okay. I believe you can see my screen.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Give me just 1 second. Okay. So I will also try to be very brief and give you an overview of what Phoebe already mentioned, the work that we have done in relation to defining what are the twin skills needed for the twin transition. And this is why we believe that this work is really important, something that also Phoebe already showed, that we are in front of us, we have changes that are really, we cannot predict things in the way we did this probably some years ago, and that's why we expect major changes in the labor market, major changes that we already see, as we already witness these changes. After all, everybody's talking about AI. Actually, the technologies changes, product changes, materials, production method changes, and this has a huge impact on all type of jobs, not only the brown jobs as we used to call them. They are the ones that will come under a huge pressure and will undergo significant transformation, but also the white jobs will change, and trying to, for example, reduce the emissions within existing activities, and new green jobs will be created, and new green jobs will be actually the ones that will include this aspect right from the design, to reduce the environmental impact right from the design. This means that we need to answer the question how to better address the skill mismatches that already exist. And this is what led us to start working on this paper, on a relevant paper that was launched in 2023, which was the European Year of Skills. And this has been a collaboration between Huawei, PwC, and at NRC. We combined several methodological approaches, as you can see briefly on this slide here. And our aim was really to develop this data-driven framework for digital and green occupations in Europe. So applying a science, technology, and innovation methodology allows for better understanding the labor skills and trends. And we made use of data analytics and text mining techniques in this work to develop this new framework, which would allow us to identify the demand for twin skills, but also make useful projections and identify trends. We use the ESCO framework and classifications for skills and occupations. It's a well-known framework that follows also the international skills classification schemes and provides relations also between skills and occupations, which has been very important for our work and an important aspect for us. This is a table that also Phoebe showed in her introductory presentation, and it's a very important table, as we believe. As we said, the aim of the report has been to support the achievement of the twin transition goal by identifying the new set of twin skills that are needed. Here you can see the relation between the EU policy frameworks and the sectors of the statistical classification of the economic activities and the relevant skills and occupations. You can read this table either from left to right or from right to left. Both is important because it makes the direct link to all the important policy frameworks that are there to implement the changes that are needed in order to achieve this sustainable future, and clearly identifies what are the skills that are needed in order to support these frameworks and what are the occupations that can support further the implementation of this framework. So for the classification of the green and digital occupations, we use the classification hierarchies that have been provided, that are provided by the ESCO application program interface, the API. And we have developed a data scoring model, which allows us which allowed us to classify the occupations based on their greenness, on the digitization, and the combination of green and digital. We first defined the green dummy variables, and then the digital dummy variables, and then for the very granular level of skills and knowledge concepts. So for that, what the ESCO framework defines as level 0, And then we define the dummy variables for the combination of green and digital, and produce this scoring model to calculate the greenness, the digitalization, and the combination of both. Here you can see the result of these calculations, the top 15. Of course, we have many more, but here we present only the top 15 green, digital, and green and digital occupations. And we did a similar ranking for the skills and knowledge groups with, again, what we present here is at the most detailed level. For example, you see that the top green occupation is the energy assessor, the top digital occupation is webmaster, and the occupation that combines green and digital is the smart home engineer. Next, in our research, we worked on the relation between the twin skills, knowledge and skills and knowledge concepts and the employment growth. This has been a very important aspect for us. We wanted also to investigate. Employment data on this table are based on the Eurostat's Labor Force Survey 2022, and we performed cross-sectional regressions on the average annual employment growth, investigating green, digital, and twin. Here you can see, for example, on this table that there has been a significant effect on employment in art and recreation, finance and insurance, ICT professional services, manufacturing, and energy supply services. In the final part of the work, we wanted to understand what is the situation in the actual job market. And for this, we analyzed the skills requested by online job ads in 2022. The first column includes the level 2 occupation group, as it is defined by the framework. And the second includes the ESCO level 1 skills and knowledge groups. And the third column is the frequency of appearance. What we have identified as the top green and digital skills and knowledge concepts are also among the most requested skills in online ads. So this means that what we did with our previous work, the things that we have identified as the ones that combine green and digital and are important are the ones that indeed are also requested by the online ads in 2022. Some key messages out of this work. It is clear that we have a high demand for green and digital occupations. This has been significantly increased since 2015. This is where our study. This is the beginning of our study. We studied what happened after 2015. So the Paris Agreement. The skills that are classified as digital, most digital, or jointly digital and green are among the most demanded skills for all occupations. And it is important to further support the skills in order to accelerate the transition. We can only accelerate the transition by filling the gap that is currently needed for green and digital skills. The technical vocational education and training, this is something that has greatly to benefit, all this domain has to greatly benefit out of this activity. So to try to accelerate this transition to green and digital skills, and we need to translate these empirical results into policy recommendations, both for universities, but also for VET providers, TVET providers, and integrate all this in curricula in both universities and TVET curricula. And it's a cross-cutting team, and it's one of the things that are essential for the sustainable development. You can find the detailed information about the report. It is how it looks like, and you can Mary has already put the link to the report in the chat. But here through this through this QR code, you can download the report. Of course, the presentation will be made available after after the meeting, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eleni. This was really useful for our understanding. Let's keep going. We have two more, and then we'll be able to go into questions and answers and comments and discussions. Next speaker, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Romain. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we're seeing your view.
And here is Professor to do the office. Inside. Yeah, the agreement works with well. Let me reshare. You can see whatever you want. Okay.
You okay, Boone? You need some help?
I'm just trying to start sharing again. How about now?
This is good. It's not in presenter mode, but we see the slides.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. Great.
Super.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you very much for this opportunity to share our work. We're really excited to be part of this learning lab skills network this morning. So just building on the presentations of Professor Kuduri and my colleagues, I'm going to be focusing now on the transformative and the participatory methodologies that we use to engage the stakeholders within all of these processes that have already been discussed. So for us, because our work is very much focused on the impact and making sure that the end users, the beneficiaries, the stakeholders, the decision makers are all involved and vested in the process right from the beginning through to the end is very important. As Professor Kuduri mentioned, that we provide a lot of the scientific basis and the models and the evidence. But if we don't build the capacity of the stakeholders, build the capacity of decision makers, help them to understand what the implications of these results and outputs are to them, and also to contextualize the priorities in a way that makes sense to the stakeholders, then there's a disconnect and a gap exists between what we bring out as a scientific community and what happens in society. So this implementation gap, especially when it comes to policy. So what our approaches here seek to do is really to bridge this gap between science, policy, and society by supporting the key actors within the process through this sustainability transition. Some of the core methodologies we adopt are our systems innovation approach, transition management, living labs, but we also utilize things like appreciative inquiry, place-based development, neighborhood management, etc., all as frameworks and methodologies that can support the identification and involvement of key stakeholders within the process. So it's not just a matter of consultation and dissemination, but actually embedding the stakeholders within the research process, within the process of developing strategic plans for the sustainability transition and supporting the decision-making at the end of the day. So with systems innovation, what we focus on are building on the idea of systems thinking and marrying that to an innovation process whereby we're able to look at the core challenges and priorities within each of the contexts. So be that climate change, be that education and skills development, identifying where those gaps are and trying to bridge those gaps with both existing innovations and also highlighting the areas of innovation gaps, which is where more emphasis and infrastructure will need to be focused to support the sustainability transition. We also utilize transition management, which again supports the sustainability transition, but in a way that promotes radical change. So we're really trying to break away from the status quo and look at how we can transform the system as a whole. And a key tool that we use to implement all of these approaches and processes are living labs. So essentially the living labs, like we said, act as these open innovation spaces where we can bring together different key stakeholders and different actors in basically a focus group setting where we can work together with these actors to, first of all, explain the outputs and the outcomes that are coming out of the different models and see that they actually match the implementation and the reality on ground, but also to work with them to be able to highlight the areas of their key priority and ensure that this is translated into the scientific processes as well. These transformative living labs are structured around the SDGs and the 6 transformation pathways to support the implementation of the SDGs. And behind each of the 17 goals, as we've already, we know there are 169 targets. So when we work within these living labs, we try and base the objectives and the aims and the goals of the living labs, the strategic targets of the living labs, and match them to these 169 SDG targets. In the context of the living lab, we work with the stakeholders to support participatory modeling. So there's an iterative exchange and iterative approach between the model outputs and validation within the living labs that then feeds back into the scientific process. So whether that's the identification of indicators, KPIs, but also looking at the translation and the localization downscaling of some of the more specific, some of the broader targets. Within this context of the living labs, we also produce these socio-physical maps, which identify the key challenges and the areas of strategic importance. So the leverage points, you could say, within the system. And this is where we try and focus our agendas and objectives when it comes to creating these strategic business roadmaps, which we'll come to in a second. We work together with the stakeholders to provide and produce these normative scenarios, which are essentially future-oriented and targets structured around the Sustainable Development Goals. So this provides a goal that the Living Lab is trying to work towards. And within these normative scenarios, we've embedded the 169 SDG targets, the relevant ones to the particular scenarios, and attached to those targets are then the equivalent SDG indicators. So you can measure the performance of the particular strategic roadmaps that we're building against the SDG performance. The scenarios are supported by these pathways, which identify the key actors along those pathways. And these actors come from what we call the quadruple helix of stakeholders. So that would be actors from the public sector, from the private sector, from academia, but also civil society and NGOs. And we attach specific actions to each of these actors. We also try and identify what the enabling conditions could be and the potential barriers to implementations of these innovation pathways. Here we have an example of how we would develop these innovation pathways. And when we talk about innovations, mind you, we don't just mean the technological innovations, we also refer to the social innovations, the policy innovations, and also the potential financial innovations. That way, we're able to match a portfolio of innovations to specific actions that lead us from the present to the envisioned future scenario, the normative scenario that we mentioned earlier, which is essentially the goal, the target of the Living Lab. And we can drill down into some of those more specific actions, the low-hanging fruit, let's say, to develop policy and business roadmaps. And this is an example of something that we developed in one of our previous European projects with stakeholders from the Peloponnese region here in Greece. So ultimately, what we try to do with these participatory approaches is to provide a framework that can support the key stakeholders, the key decision makers, to develop an understanding and facilitate the pathways towards the sustainable transition. Here we have an example of some of the relevant projects that have have implemented these methodologies that we just referred to. And Mary has shared a link earlier, and you can find more information in each of those projects at your leisure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ebun. This was equally interesting. Let's move to the last mini presentation so that we can then dive into questions and comments. And I can already say that all the presentations and the links, not only are they shared now in the chat box for your immediate convenience, they will also be sent to you via email after the meeting. So rest assured, you will have access to all these fascinating presentations. Next speaker, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Lydia Papadakis. I'm a researcher at the AE4RIA network, which is comprised by Athena Research Center and web, as Professor Kountouri earlier mentioned. So I'll get straight to the main topic of my presentation today. I will share with you some ongoing accelerators that we run in order to support the business development and mainly the startups and the development of the startups. We run 3 accelerators. Let's get to them into one by one. The first one is the MENA Maritime Accelerator, which seeks to accelerate the green transition and the green transformation of the maritime industry by supporting startups that will provide innovative solutions for the transition to climate neutrality and resilience. The founding members of this program are the Sustainable Development Unit at Athena Research and Innovation Center, Chrysalis Leap and Cyprus Energy Agency in Cyprus, and Cyprus University of Technology, Cleantech and Cleantech Bulgaria. The program provides training, mentoring, industry support, and networking opportunities for the startups. And here is a brief story of how we started. In 2021, the MENA Maritime Accelerator was co-financed by EIT Climate Kicking and was led by CAT. In the first year, we had 30 startups of stages 1 and 2 that got accelerated through the program. In 2022, Cleantech Bulgaria joins the consortium, and we also get fully funded by EU-funded projects from such as the Arsinoe and the Brigade Connect Association. In 2023, we also partnered up with the Hellenic Public Asset Development Fund in order to run the Maritime Accelerator, and we supported 13 startups of stages 2 and 3. Also, together with the Hellenic Republic Asset Development Fund, we designed and conducted a series of workshops and seminars in order to upskill the port organizations, municipal port funds, and of course the marina managers. Our vision is to be a long-lasting strategic partner for the maritime industry. And to do that, we support startups in order to provide the commercial solutions to the maritime industry. Our focus are operations and logistics, technology, energy adaptation, and climate change. Here you can have a brief look on our thematic priorities, which are the alternative low-carbon energy, propulsion systems and new ship designs, energy efficiency, low-carbon logistics, environmental measurement, etc. And also you can have a look at the startups that we support this year. 13 in total. Most of them are related to they provide IT solutions, but they also focus on circularity, energy decarbonization, and other sectors. What we offer, first of all, to the maritime industry, we help them identify solutions that are mature enough in order to solve existing climate and stability-related problems. We also support them mitigate the risks by sourcing multiple startups, investment opportunities, and technological solutions. While to the startups, we provide them mentoring and coaching, an extensive training program, workshops, co-working spaces, networking events, and connection with the industry, which is the most important part. Our consortium is a very well positioned in the maritime sector, and through a network of collaborators, the startups are able to demonstrate the technology in a safe environment before they venture it into the real world. Here's the timeline, and also these are the lecturers that participated in the accelerator, the team, and of course our partners and supporters. The second accelerator that we run focuses on the Black Sea and is a very dynamic initiative in order to support the business invention, the marine innovation, and to pioneer transformative maritime technologies. Also, the participants in the program are benefiting from the strategic guidance, access to investment opportunities, and networking of the partners. Everybody can apply to this program from startups, SMEs, larger enterprises, universities, and individuals. Both regional and non-regional applicants are eligible in order to get acceptance to the program. And the priority areas that we have in this accelerator are ocean observation, ports and transport, fisheries and aquaculture, marine tourism, blue biotechnology, renewable energy, and nature-based solutions. We offer a network of experts, again, a series of trainings and workshops in order to help the startups accelerate their business, pitching session, and of course, connection with the investors. This year we had 30 applications coming mainly from the Black Sea, but also from other places in the world. And here are some key events. In December we had the kickoff, but in next month, on April 23rd and 24th, we're going to have the Doors Stakeholder Conference in Bucharest, where you're all very much invited to attend if you are around. There also we'll have the startups and some networking opportunities with investors. And last but not least, we have the Brigade Connect. Brigade Connect started as a Horizon 2020 project aiming to bridge the gap between the innovators and the end users in flood, drought, and extreme weather resilience. The vision of Brigade Connect is to bring together research centers, SMEs, individuals, contributing with different expertise and angles in order to help to climate resilience. It fosters innovation in climate change, adaptation, sustainability, and the priority is to strengthen the ecosystem. The pillars of Brigade Connect are research, focusing on the implementation aspect, market outreach, and business support. And to achieve this, it will add expertise and support innovation, business development, technology, and global design. The members of the Brigade Connect is eCatalyst, of course, Athena Research Center, founding company Nancy Lala, and business strategy development innovation manager. Also, this work is supported by the Climate Innovation Window, which is an online platform that engineers the creation of real networking opportunities between the golden triple helix of innovators and users and investors. Here's also a short video that you can watch later on. And again, the Brigade Connect is part of two Horizon projects, the MEA and the Arsinoi. You can find more information here. Regarding our further support in terms of business development, there's the AE4RIA metrics that Conrad, Dr. Landis showed earlier. And also we run another program, Climathons, that aim to support citizens and new entrepreneurs to identify the teams and solutions in order to launch their business and then be able to participate in our accelerators. Here is the Climathon is a global initiative. In Greece, we have run 23 Climathons so far in 12 cities, and we have identified more than 100 solutions. Again, you can find everything in our website that Mary sent earlier, in both on AE4RIA and Global Climate Hub. And again, here are the priorities of the AE4RIA. Thank you so much for the attention. I'm available for any questions, and also please reach out in my mail when you want to discuss further.
Thank you very much. Wow, what a journey we've taken. I want to really thank the entire team of Professor Koundouri for giving us such a clear overview of what it is that you do. I must confess, I have rarely seen such an eloquent illustration of a whole system approach. I'm very impressed by your work. Now we enter the discussion phase, so we could probably start with clarifying some issues that may have come up during your presentation. I will briefly look at the chat box. I have seen multiple messages asking whether we can share the presentations. As I said, we will send all the presentation and the links in an email once we are done with this meeting. So no issues there. That's a simple task. I am seeing the question from Laura Veza Visan. Would you like to turn on your camera, take the floor, and explain that question to the audience?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the presentations. I was just curious about the accelerator work. If at the end of the activities, do you measure, and how you measure the impact in terms of skills and labor market effects of the people in your accelerator? Thank you.
So in principle, the accelerators are there to enable a faster transition of the startups and innovation ideas to the market. Not just a faster transition, but also to enable them to escape the valley of death. This is what we call all these huge failure percentage of startups on to actually become a company that survives in the market. Now, indeed, one very important offering service of the accelerators is that they create jobs, because these companies create jobs, and also they create jobs in very innovative areas of the market. So these are mostly jobs in the green and digital spectrum. The tool that Conrad has showcased, Dr. Landis has showcased, is able to measure this effect on the labor market, and not just the numbers of new jobs, but also the quality element of these jobs in terms of which areas they pop up. So there is a continuous measurement of the ability of our accelerators to create new jobs, and also a continuous categorization of these new jobs in the spectrum of new occupations and new skills. So we have this data, and we can also share with you.
Thank you very much. Zebo Isakova, would you like to take the floor? You had a question. Zebo? Okay, I'll read out the question, which was very relevant. In what ways can emerging technologies be leveraged to promote sustainability within the tourism sector without exacerbating environmental degradations? That's the question from Zebo Isakova. Who wants to take that one?
I'm always here, but I guess, I mean, Connor can also respond to this. The tourist sector is really a big sector across the world, and there is now a big sustainability transition wave. On Thursday, I was in Cyprus in the Southeast Mediterranean conference of the tourist sector, and not only they have to submit sustainability reports, but they are also very engaged in transforming towards using renewable energy, towards implementing energy efficiency, towards engaging with a circular economy to lower their costs, towards implementing sustainable transport initiatives, digitalization, and of course, nature-based solutions. So there is a huge element in the transformation of the tourist sector that has to do with the sustainability transition, but not just the transition, the transformation and the new investments, but also there is a lot of opportunity for financing sustainable investments. I was presenting our AE4RIA metrics to them, and there was a lot of interest. Epun, please. Yes, please go on.
No, Philip, please go ahead and finish it. I was just going to add to what you're saying, really, and highlight the fact that within all our approaches, we really implement a systemic view. So the basis of everything that we consider, it takes a systemic approach to what's happening. So that means that we're able to mitigate those kind of cascading effects and really look at the synergies and the trade-offs. So within the tourism sector, for example, if we're looking at implementing particular technologies, if you cast your mind back to those social site biophysical maps I talked about, we're able to observe the dynamics within the system. What happens when you introduce a particular innovation to other parts of that system in a way that we can avoid the unintended negative consequences, potential environmental degradation in different areas. And in addition, we work together with the cross-section of stakeholders. So, and part of those stakeholders within the tourism sector are also representatives of whether NGOs, civil organizations, particularly in areas like Greece, the Natura or marine protected areas. And they're able to also provide feedback on how the potential innovations that we might recommend might have an impact on the biodiversity in whatever those areas are.
And if I may add, the tourist sector is really involved in the shipping and transportation by air. So shipping, air transport are two of the 5 most difficult to abate sectors. So the engagement of these sectors and tourist sector in its totality with this transformation that needs to take place is really crucial. It's one of the most crucial sectors, especially because it is very linked to transport and transport by sea and by air. So a lot is happening there.
Thank you very much. Another question and from Sugan Agarwal. If you're listening, you're very welcome to turn on your camera, take the floor, and tell us your question.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm in India, so it's afternoon in my country. I'm doing my PhD in economics from IIM Indore, and I also work in the space of skilling. And India has had a big public funded program on skilling. So my question is, and it had been more output based, which people have mixed reviews about how it went. So my question is, are there any models that you have experienced in terms of bringing in private financing or public private financing, linking it to the outcome based in terms of skilling? Because there's a lot of skepticism that private sector goes through in terms of financing the skilling initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will go first, and then I will ask Conrad to come in, and Lydia. It is very important to identify in each and every company, in each and every level of organization. It can be an institution, it can be a local authority, a city, a region of a country as a whole. It is very important to identify the needs for upskilling and reskilling, and then also identify the most efficient mixture of finance. It is always about the blend of private and public finance. There are public opportunities in terms of, especially in Europe, but also in other continents, to finance this upskilling and reskilling. It has to be part of the government budget. It has to be part of the education transformation. But at the same time, because most money in the world are in private hands, and most economic growth is produced by the private sector, it is crucial to have private resources in this transformation. So it's not enough to restructure the university curricula. It's not enough to restructure the upskilling and reskilling vocational courses offered by the government. It is also important to create crucial public-private partnerships that are very well targeted in upskilling and reskilling the labor force in each sector of the economy. And this will happen only when both the private and the public sector feel secure. They have the trust that this upskilling and reskilling will contribute to their financial viability and will contribute to their growth. Conrad, you can say a bit on how we measure the effect of the correct and efficient upskilling and reskilling with regards to the blend of finance that is needed. And let me also say that India is doing a lot, especially in trying to attract the private sector in the ESG transformation, in the upskilling and reskilling. I would say that although there is a lot of discussion whether it is done efficiently, it is one of the most advanced countries in this area. We work in India, and there is quite a big advancement, and considering the population in India, it is crucial to have this country on board. Conrad?
Okay, I would also add that what we presented actually tells a story here that in order to support the transition, we need to have first a portfolio of solutions. Okay, so solutions, innovation in relation to policies, in relation to financial instruments, in relation to technology. Okay, but so our tools can be used in order for us to assess gaps in, let's say, in the implementation or in financing of specific financing on our pathway to sustainability, but identifying also the portfolios of solutions to support this transition is also equally important. Okay, so we need also to have an optimum an optimal mixture of financing solutions to support this transition. And I fully agree with Phoebe in the reference to that we need to leverage more private capital in this direction.
Can I add something? Okay, for this purpose, a new thing, an innovation, let's say, in our innovation accelerator that we had this year was to upskill and reskill the managers and the staff of the ports in Greece in order to be able first to recognize the challenges, the sustainability challenges that they face within their ports, and then be able to match and discuss and leverage all these innovative solutions that come from the accelerators. So it was going a step ahead and trying to bridge this gap between the innovators and the users of innovation in order to accelerate basically this this matchmaking.
Thank you very much. Allow me to bring in a dear friend of ours, Ahad Kazimov, who's got a very concrete question, which Phoebe has just answered. Ahad, do you want to take the floor quickly, just to show who you are?
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate that you brought up my question. It's first of all, thank you very much for very interesting event. Thank you very much to Skills Lab Network and Francesca Romain. Thank you to this another initiative. Sorry for my maybe I will wrong pronounce the abbreviation of your organizational project, but it's really indeed very interesting, and especially Romain knows that I'm in the past 2 years I'm really engaged in different projects, research related to sustainable development. So for me it's very interesting. First, second, is that I'm living in Azerbaijan. Whether I'm living in Azerbaijan, still we are very close ties with the Black Sea region, and especially we have a good economic historical ties with Georgia, with Ukraine. So in this case, I think it will be also interesting to bring the Azerbaijani organizations, research institutions, experts, even universities, because, for example, last year I did a presentation about SDGs at Baku State University. And Baku State University, we are very interested in promote ideas of SDGs, especially for higher education. So if you're open to other members outside of EU, so it will be great to introduce you with Baku State University at least. Thank you.
Of course we are. We work with countries around the world, and we are interested in any collaboration that has this vision for prioritizing the SDG as a framework that can enable sustainability transition. It is crucial for us to work with all these institutions, and crucial to realize that having a common framework across the world can enable, facilitate, and accelerate the transition. It's so difficult to work with varying frameworks, especially when the problems are global, like climate, like the climate crisis, like the ecosystem collapse, like the economic growth slowing down. So yes, we are very open to this kind of collaborations. And you can reach out to us, and then we can brainstorm around how, because we believe that it is important to have the financing in order to support the collaboration. So the first thing we do is that we identify common vision and common targets, and then we try to identify funding sources that can support this collaboration, and then build on this collaboration and integrate it in our work in order to increase the impact of our work across the globe with interested partners.
Thank you very much, Professor Kunduri. Before I give the word to you, Jan, I see you got your hand up. I want to, because there's another question which really links to this. It's from Raman Mogaji. Would you like to formulate your question with your camera on? Raman?
Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, actually, my question is, how can a institution from Nigeria can join and collaborate with AE4RIA? That's one. And secondly, the issue of funding has been a challenge in Africa. So is there possibility of having funding support in the course of this collaboration? These are my questions.
Yes, first of all, there is a UN SDSN Nigerian hub. There is a country hub where you can connect with the SDSN network. Second, we have a very strong presence in Nigeria, especially through the work and influence and leadership of Dr. Epunakinsede, who is a leading member of AE4RIA, but she is also very active in the country. She comes from the country. And third, there are funding initiatives under Horizon 2030 that link Europe and Africa. We had a number of projects, mainly in Northern Africa, but also in all the countries around the Zambezi and Omo River Basin. So we're talking about 14 additional countries together with Northern Africa. So we are very interested in this kind of collaborations. You can see projects that we had on Africa on our website, especially under the theme Water, Food, Energy, and Biodiversity Nexus. And we are very interested in enlarging the relevant collaborations. Epun, I don't know if you want to say something about this.
Certainly, Phoebe, thank you very much. So like Professor Kuduri mentioned, there is an SDSN Nigeria network. It's based at University of Ibadan. I'm not sure where you're based yourself, Raman, but please reach out and I can put you in touch. In general, the structure is that we try and identify our joint priorities, and we can try and formulate a kind of funding proposal or look for a specific research project that we can attach our collaboration to. That way we can have funding to actually support the activities. In the area of vocation and training, we're actually currently investigating a kind of equivalent study around green and digital skills for Nigeria. So that might be something that you might be interested in becoming involved in as a stakeholder institution. So please do reach out and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raman, for this very relevant question. I'm sure everybody was listening carefully to the answer. And so thank you, Phoebe, and clear answer. And I see, Jan, you still have your hand up. Would you like to take the floor now?
And if I may say very quickly, if you think that within your country there is potential for using some of our tools, the spin-off, the advice, the supporting of upskilling and reskilling, but also the sustainability transformation of companies, of institutions, we can create partnership with you, and you can function as the local partner, and we can function partly as the knowledge partner with you, and we can enter the market there and provide the services we provide for other countries. So we are very interested in any propositions or ideas that can be inspired from what we have presented here. Please go on. Sorry for the
It's all good.
No, thanks. Thanks, Roman. No, first I want to thank you, Roman, thank Francesca, thank Cristiana for organizing this and for all the participants and speakers. It's a very interesting conversation. especially, I mean, for me, it's wonderful because I have been working specifically on the field of innovation and vocational education for a few years. And rarely we see this type of connection that we are trying to do here in this event, in which we bring the vision of the innovation projects and skills development. However, I have a bit of a challenging question for the speakers, and it's about the role of vocational education. And I wanted to ask, because in your speech, in your presentation, you have been pretty much focusing on vocational education as skills, as equal to skills development, skills formation. When we know, for example, that vocational education has a substantial role in actually leading research and innovation in several places around the world, including, for example, Canada, Australia, China, the Basque Country, Brazil, and South America, many other places. And I wanted to hear from your side if you have experience in collaborating with vocational education, not only from the point of view of changing the curricula and changing the skills that are needed, but also by incorporating VET players into the processes of developing innovation themselves, and not simply by following the innovations that are developed by researchers or universities outside VET. So that's the question. Thank you.
That's a very good question and very timely question. And the answer is, of course, yes. In each and every research project that we run, and these are different from the innovation and upskilling and reskilling projects. The research projects that we run, and we run hundreds of them, there is no single project that does not integrate the research with education, upskilling, and reskilling. The co-design of innovation at the same time with designing the skills, the education needs that will transform, like we transform the economy and the society. So like Epun said, we bring all stakeholders together to give information on what they think should be the priorities, the strengths and weaknesses, and how all the stakeholders work together in order to support the economy and the society to get on a robust pathways. So there is a two-way relationship. There is an interaction between research, what research is focusing and producing, and of course, what education and training is focusing and produces. And usually we learn from the sector of education and training that we are also part of as university institutions and training institutions. We learn about strengths within a country and also weaknesses in terms of areas that need more support that impact the research result in terms of which is the best area for a country or a region to focus, how the flows of industrial and economic activity impacts and are impacted by the skills and education that exist in the country and by the areas within those skills that are strong in a country. For example, Greece is a very strong hub for ICT skills and education. So that gives an element that needs to be incorporated in the pathways we create for the transformation of the economy of Greece. ICT and marine sector occupations. So definitely the interaction between research and education and upskilling and reskilling is a two-way interaction for us. I don't know if Eleni Tolly wants to say something
She has
about
her hand
this.
up.
Yes, I raised my hand.
Excellent.
Okay, and I wanted actually to say a few things about the project that Ebun just put in the chat. You're right, Jan. The focus today was we may give the impression that it's a one-directional thing, but it's not like this. And the focus of many European efforts are indeed in the direction of reskilling and upskilling. And that's why also the focus of our discussion today. But it goes both ways, as Professor Kunduri said. And a very good example is how we implement this in this project that Ebun just put in the chat, where we develop 70, which is a big number, I believe, for a EU project, 70 online courses on various topics. So a very broad range of topics, high-level educational content online. But in parallel, we embed in this process the innovation aspects right from the beginning. So in the sense that we make sure through the associated partners network that we make sure that these courses have a direct impact on the local innovation ecosystems in each country, on the one hand, and on the other hand, to make also sure that the courses that we propose and that we offer do really cover the research needs of, because there are indeed research needs that are covered through this vet training. And very often this research is offered not by public bodies, not by universities, but we collaborate with research-intensive SMEs. And this is indeed very important part of how we do all things coming together and be combined, as Ebun said, through the systemic approach and through the activities we try to engage with all stakeholders involved in the whole process, creating the knowledge, distributing the knowledge, using the knowledge, and this process creates new innovation and generates also new research aspects.
Thank you very much. Ebun, do you want to carry on?
Yeah, certainly. So just to add to what Eleni said there, Eleni was referring to the first link, which is the Catalyst project. So that's one of the Erasmus projects we're currently working on. But to build on that, no pun intended, with the second project, Build Skills, which focuses on the construction sector, where, like you said, a lot of the innovation actually comes from the vet providers. I mean, I have a background in the construction industry myself. And when we talk about skill innovations around the materials and everything, you see a lot of that coming from vet providers. So we're working closely with vet providers who are also partners on the project, as well as a wider network of vet providers who form a stakeholder pool that we are soliciting feedback from in an iterative process, not just on innovations, thematic or sector-based market innovations that they're working on, but also pedagogical innovations on how they're delivering their training processes in a kind of peer-to-peer learning framework to improve the courses and to improve the provision of each of these providers themselves.
Yeah, sorry, just to add, I put it in the chat an example of a project, an European project that's being developed, which is focusing on applied research in vocational education. And I think that's a very interesting source material for this discussion, to see how VET can do much more than simply skills development, skills formation, and how actually the integration of knowledge development in VET and skills formation, as you said, it's very beneficial for both sides, for both functions of the system. So there's information there on this project. I suggest everybody to check. It's a very good one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan, for this contribution. Lydia, do you want to take the floor?
Yeah, just one sentence on what Eleni Toli just said about the Catalyst project. So since we're in the 1.5 year of the project, definitely, Jean-Peter, what you shared with us, this is actually the vision of the Catalyst project. Beyond the 70 courses, one of the big outcomes is that we want to create these partnerships between the VET providers and innovators. And of course, the partners in the Catalyst project in order to create projects that will be eligible for funding in the future and becoming a startup. So definitely what you said is in line with what we try to do under this project. And of course, the other Erasmus projects that they have a similar goal.
Thank you very much. Still on skills, I want to give the floor to Francesca. Francesca Rosso, do you want to bring in your question? I think it relates to this discussion.
Yes, yes, thank you, Roman. In fact, I was really listening with, great interest. I was extremely amazed by the wealth of information and work that has been carried out by the colleagues. And again, I reiterate my gratitude, my thanks for coming and sharing. There are so many different angles that I took note of. I will try to summarize a bit in the end, although summary is almost mission impossible in this specific event. But I had one specific question, which I was thinking about when there was the presentation by Lydia about the maritime industry. You presented a very interesting slide with the different classes of investigation and work, and one was about the skills side. And as you know, that is a topic which is very dear to us. I was wondering what type of methods in this specific work on accelerator you use to identify emerging skills needs in the blue economy, if I'm allowed to call it like that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Francesca. Actually, let me share my my slide. So this was it. Indeed, here you can see as a priority the skills and training. What we do in the accelerator, though, is not research. We try to support the startups to grow, correct? And one of these priorities are basically the call priorities for the startups to provide solutions rather than a research methodology that we perform. So when it comes to skills and training as a new business model, zero waste and circular economy, these are some of the aspects that the startup that wants to be accepted in the program has to include at least one of these thematic priorities. So it's for them to come up with a new plan on how to do things better.
And if I may, on the 31st of May, we are organizing conference with the Ministry of Shipping in Greece, but it will be an international conference, and there we will launch the new report about skills and vocational training and new occupations that are needed in order for the shipping sector to get on a green and digital pathway. It will be specific on this sector and not just shipping, but also all blue growth possible activities. So we are looking at shipping, at ports, at energy production offshore, at fishing, aquaculture, blue transportation, and coastal tourism in order to identify the transition of the labor force in the blue economy sector of the economy. And it would be really lovely if some of you are interested in this area to actually be present at this international conference. We will set invites in order to be distributed.
Thank you. If I can just react to these for sure, Phoebe, we are very interested, and I also want to spoil a bit one of our next activities that we will organize. It has not been officially announced yet, but it's my pleasure to give a preview here. We will organize our yearly live event in Torino in October. Actually, we have one live event per year. Other network members know, because there have been already 2 editions, and this year the focus of the event will be about the colors of the economy. And when we talk about the colors of the economy, of course, we talk about the green sector, if you want, but also other, and the blue sector is definitely one of the colors of the economy on which we want to investigate more. And what is really interesting for us is to build partnership with institutions, with actors that are really developing an expertise in the different economic sectors. We will also talk about the orange economy. We will talk about the silver economy, and we are really seeking for partners and for speakers. And the blue economy is definitely one of the aspects on which we want to learn more. So again, as I said, I'm spoiling a bit here, but I'm happy to announce it, and we will definitely follow up bilaterally.
Amazing, right? Konrad, you want to say something?
Before Konrad speaks, just to say bye-bye. I'm sorry I have to leave for the next meeting. It was a great pleasure to be with you and discuss with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eleni.
I also wanted to add that we are working on a data-driven model and framework to, let's say, define the blue skills. So in the direction of the models that we presented, we are working on the labor market, trying to identify which are the skills, the competencies, the knowledge concepts that are most related to occupations on the blue economy, okay, in many aspects. And we are building a similar data-driven model in order to present relevant results in relation to what we call blue skills, together with green and digital skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Konrad. So are there any more questions from the audience? I don't see any. Well, then I can make my own question. I get a chance now. And conveniently, Eleni has just left before I wanted to clarify something with her. But I feel confident that the entire team is still here, and we can still do this. Now, my question was related to the fact that this network, as you can see from the title, we really focus on skills, education, employment. That really is our focus. One, and second, we look really at a global picture. We focus on the neighborhood region, but we do have a global perspective. So we of course do care about what happens inside the EU. We are an EU institution, but we really want to understand better what's happening outside the EU. And this is, and I want to bring up this question with this introduction to say, can you measure the green skills gap in other countries outside the EU? Because I mean, you've covered so much ground. There's no way I can remember everything. Do you have precise data points on that green and digital skills gap in, I don't know, Turkey, in Morocco? Do you have that?
Konrad, do you want to say something, or should I answer?
Go on, Vivi, and then I will add some
methodology. Okay, the methodology that we develop is in principle implementable to each and every country at each and every scale. So what the methodology does, it takes the existing policy framework and can showcase, based on the forward-lookingness of this policy framework, can measure by any date in the future what kind of skills and occupations you will need and what is that gap of the labor force being able to respond. So in the report that we did, we focused mainly on the green and digital sector in Europe, but there are projections that are global, although in order for these projections to be detailed enough, we need to implement for specific regions like we did for Europe. So the results that we have for the rest of Europe are more general. They can be made very specific in any country, at any scale within any country. And in addition, in the SDR reports that we do, the Sustainable Development reports that we do under UNSDSN, we have data for each and every country. It is not exhaustive. It is not in the global south, the data excluding ex-UK Commonwealth colonies. The data is not as good as in Europe, but there is data and we can proceed with detailed implementation. Connor?
Yes, and I was also wanted to add that the results we displayed here are based on the European classification system for skills and competencies, but we have data for using the international classification system, and we're also right now working, for example, as a case study in Nigeria in implementing the framework to the local classification system. So yes, what we describe, models and approaches, are directly implementable in any country.
So what primary data do you rely on?
What in our overall analysis?
Yes, what primary data?
Maybe I want to go back to. Sorry.
Yes. So at the let's say at the very basis, we need some data in relation to the classification system for a specific country. Now we will need data from the labor markets. There we have two types of data. Okay, so we need at least an indicator for the growth or the employment based on different sectors. In the form that the sectors are defined in different countries. It doesn't have to be NASA, for example, as the European system. And on the other hand, the raw data we have are data directly through the job from online job, let's say, sources. Okay, as LinkedIn and some other sources. So yeah, the primary data, a lot of the primary data are available for, let's say, all countries around the world, but of course for Europe, the data set it's more complete.
Okay.
So just to add to what Conrad said, I mean, the degree to which that data is primary versus secondary, again, depends on the country that we're looking at. So trying to take that out of Europe and using like Nigeria as the case study, we're seeing that we might have to develop tools to actually support the collection of more, a larger amount of primary data, just simply because there isn't the existing data at the moment.
Right. Yeah, my question was not without interest. We have this problem in most of our research that we find it extremely complicated to access labor markets, administrative data, and when we do get it, sometimes there's issues with quality. So this is one of the considerations we must take when we work with the mandated countries of the ETF. But allow me, and I know we're going to close soon, and Francesca is going to have the pleasure of offering some insights and explaining future steps. But just can I have one last question, because it relates to this? And so I want to, how to formulate this simply. You were talking about how the way that you identify green skills and therefore green occupations is by using the ESCO labeling. ESCO, of course, for those of us who don't know, is the European Standards and Qualifications. I can't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's the structure to organize all the occupations. And if one looks at what has been labeled as green in that basically repository of all the possible jobs, one quickly finds that these are mostly jobs that are highly technical, that address green technology, not only digital, but most of decarbonization technology, as well as some environmental policy. But I want to bring this up because here's my question. When we look at the EU, sure, that makes sense to a certain degree, because most of the economies there are advanced or high income economies. The moment you get out of the EU and you're dealing with low or mid income economies, does this labeling still make sense? A lot of the low income countries will need to grow before they can actually fully address their sustainability, their economic sustainability. They still need to provide basic services to their citizens, not to mention education or health. And my point is that is the ESCO labeling relevant for low and mid-income economies?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, here I share the European Skills, Competences, Qualifications, and Occupations Framework. So this is what we refer when we are dealing with Europe. Now, is it relevant for countries outside Europe? First of all, for the US, there is a relevant classification scheme as well. So if you're talking about the developed world, US, Canada, Australia, Europe, there are classification systems that are directly relevant. If we're talking for developing countries, then these classification systems need qualifying. What is important, however, to keep in mind is that the global effort should focus on the global south avoiding a fossil fuel, non-sustainable, not digital growth, which basically means that they need to escape the tragedy that the Western world went through, and which was an industrialization era based on fossil fuel and non-sustainable use of natural capital and no sustainable sustainability with regards to social cohesion, and focus on a growth that it is sustainable. And now they can do this because fossil fuels are more expensive, non-circularity is more expensive, and non-digitalization is more expensive. So what I'm trying to say is that it is now possible for the Global South to focus on a growth, economic growth that it is sustainable. And this means that the skills and occupations that will be needed are more aligned with the skills and occupations that are needed even in the developed world. Having said that, however, of course, as Epun said before, when we work on developing countries, on emerging markets, we revise, refine our framework of categorization in order to make it consistent with the reality in these countries. And this revision is done on a scientific basis using data, but also using local expertise and visions and perceptions, which are derived through stakeholder participatory approaches. Epun?
Thank you,
We're gonna need
Phoebe.
to close soon, Epun, please.
Yes, I was just going to add that actually most countries do have a skills and knowledge framework that we try and work towards. So in Nigeria, for example, there is a national skills and knowledge framework that's kind of equivalent to the ESCO. Of course, we have to go through that to try and match those skills and try and classify them in a relevant way. But just to key into what Phoebe was pointing out there about the idea of this developmental leapfrog, because we're really at a very crucial juncture where we look at the global south. So being able to leapfrog some of the more, shall we say, environmentally degrading development approaches and keying into more sustainable pathways from the ground, from the foundation at this point in time, is really where we're trying to focus our efforts with the countries in the global south that we're working with.
Thank you very much. Very clear answer. Conrad, I see you have your hand up, but we're already over time. And I really need to give the floor to Francesca. She will be mad at me. Can we save this intervention for another call? Sorry about that.
Okay.
And Francesca, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Roman. And yeah, sorry to interrupt. It has been an amazing discussion, and I mean the number of intervention and discussion and question shows the great interest of all the members for the work that you are doing. And let me just really take a couple of minutes to make a reflection. We participate in hundreds of events, and we discuss with many different institutions running research on different topics related to education, training, employment, sustainability. But believe me, I mean, rarely I've seen such a comprehensive approach. What you have really presented today show us that this systemic approach is the one that pays back, because we cannot put things into silos. All the aspects that you have underlined today, talking about the SDG, talking about a common policy framework to enable sustainability transition, talking about the role of SMEs and of course startups, but also the role of actors, the fact, and that was really interesting, the fact that you try to engage the stakeholders in the transition. All of these are aspects that are linked to each other. Of course, not even to mention the issue of skills anticipation, understanding skills demand, new skills emerging in the different economic sectors. All of these aspects are interlinked and connected. And what you presented today make us really understand that we cannot treat them as separate words, because they are really linked to each other. There were many discussions today, and I really tried to take note of the different elements, but it's really very, very difficult. But I took some key words that were mentioned today, talking about, for instance, optimal allocation of resources in the different economic sector, finding the right mix. Fabi, you mentioned that, of technology, policy, narrative, to really engage with countries with different contexts, and that's extremely important. We work with a wealth of different countries that have different starting points, but also our mapping, the mapping that we have done in ETF about sustainability and the greening of the different economies where we work is in line with your findings. So policymakers are broadly convinced of the need to go into a more sustainable world, but of course the way to get there may differ also according to the starting point of the different countries. Then I took very interesting point about the impact. and the regressive effects of the climate transition that needs to be mitigated. That's also a point which is extremely dear to the European Commission, the social impact of sustainability, the fact that greening cannot be achieved to the detriment of those groups that are more vulnerable in the economy. That's also something very important in the partner countries of the ETF and in the EU neighboring countries. And then, of course, the incidence of the impact of greening and the digital transition on different occupation. These findings that you have presented in your Twin Skills for Twin Transition report, I think is extremely relevant. There is an increasing demand for the jobs, for the occupation that have a high score of green and digital together. That tell us something as policymakers, as researchers, as people who are active in the different countries. I have really a lot of many other points that I took note of. Last but not least, the need to develop more tools to collect primary data, especially in developing and transition countries. That's also a point on which we are working a lot. Much more, but really what to say. I just want to really thank all of you for your very serious research and your contribution to the topic and to the achievement of a more sustainable world, more sustainable countries. I think that's really something remarkable. I want to thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with the members of the network. And of course, we also welcome feedback from members. Please reach out to us. I think this was an extremely rich session. Let us know what you think. And of course, as we started with that, but I encourage all of you that are not members of the network yet to register, because we will have many more activities. We have a series of webinars. We will have other upcoming peer learning sessions, and of course, the live event that I mentioned in October. I stop here because we're really running out of time. But again, a big thanks, of course, also thanks to our colleagues in Co-Water and Brodolini helping us to develop this peer learning session. My colleagues Roman Guattard and Cristiana Burzio. And I hope that there will be many more opportunities very soon. Thanks to all of you. Goodbye.